What's going on, everyone? This is Fred with everydaytactical.com, and today I'm going to go over what I believe is the perfect Glock 17 build. So what I want to do is go over every single piece and part that I've added to this Glock 17, and I did film full install videos, but unfortunately I can't put that on YouTube. So if you want to see all the modifications and how to install them, please visit the article down below. But what I can show you is the completed build. So let's break that down. The first thing I want to go over is the actual frame, and this is not a Glock 17. This is actually a Glock 34. And if you weren't already aware, the Glock 34 and the 17 share the same frame with a few differences. There's a few reasons why I wanted to start with a Glock 34. One is that I got a crazy deal on a brand new Glock 34 Gen 5, so I had to have it. The second reason is I want to actually start competitions soon, so I figured for competitions I could use the 34 slide, and for carry situations I can just swap it out with a 17. Now, there are a few differences. They're not major, but I'll go over them with you now. The first difference is that the Glock 34s come with an extended slide lock. And this is actually my first experience with an extended slide lock. And I gotta say, I do like it. I know this is a common modification, but this is the first time I've tried one, and I do like it. The next difference is that the Glock 34s come with a minus connector, whereas most other Glocks come with a dot connector. There's not a huge difference here, but it will lighten up the pull, and the brake is a little bit more of a rolling brake. And that's really the only difference between a Glock 34 and a Glock 17. It's that extended slide lock and the minus connector in the trigger housing. So let's move on to the modifications, and there's really only two, or maybe consider it three modifications I did to the frame. The first one is the trigger. Next is the Magwell, and if you want to call this a modification, you could say the hockey tape as well. For the trigger, I went with the Johnny Glock's Vex trigger shoe with their polished trigger bar. It wasn't the full kit, it was only the shoe and the bar. And this is one of my favorite trigger setups because the shoe itself, it is a flat trigger, but it's also rounded, so it's very comfortable on your fingers. And with the Glock minus connector, this gives it a very nice, smooth, rolling, crispy break. And for the bottom, I went with an Overwatch Precision Magwell. Normally for Glocks, I usually go with an SLR Magwell, but this time I did want to give Overwatch a try, and it's quite nice. The install is really simple. You basically just pop it on and screw in the back right here. And the Magwell on the inside, it does cover up all the hanging points of your factory Glock flare. I have been doing a lot of reloading drills, and it works as it should. Really nothing bad to say about this Magwell. But we can't forget about the last modification, and that will be the hockey tape. And yes, this is your standard regular hockey tape. I will put a link in my article to the exact one that I used, but it's your standard hockey tape. What I will say is that it does work, it does provide more grip, but my preference would be to have something more aggressive like stippling. It does work though, so it's kind of personal preference. I will say for how cheap it is, you should give it a try. I do like it. And that's pretty much it for the lower half of this build. There's really nothing crazy here, but as a recap, what we have is a Glock 34 17 frame. We have a factory Glock extended slide lock. We have a factory Glock minus connector. We have a Johnny Glock's Vex trigger shoe with their polished trigger bar. And we have a Overwatch Precision Magwell with some hockey tape. And that is the perfect Glock 17 lower. There's not much you have to do to get that perfection. Moving up top to the slide, barrel, and optic. And just another reminder, I will have a full parts list with a video walkthrough of how to install every single item in the article, which is linked down in the description at everydaytactical.com. For the optic, I went with a Trijicon SRO. This is the 5 MOA version, and this is my second favorite optic, my first being the 507 comp. But for this build, I decided to go with a Trijicon. And this is a really great optic. I do like how big the window is. There was a point in time where I went through an enclosed optic phase, but now I'm really back into just getting optics with the largest windows. This being my second favorite and the first favorite being the Holosun 507 comp. I just wish that the SRO could come out with a green dot because that is easier on my eyes. Now, the only thing you need to know when installing the SRO, especially on Glocks, is you want to make sure that that right screw is a shorter screw so it doesn't affect the ejector. But other than that, the install, super basic. You just want to make sure you have it torqued properly, but you shouldn't receive any problems after that. And finally, what I believe is the star of the show, and that'll be the ported slide and barrel. And this is the Art Division Reactor for the Glock 17 Gen 5. Now, the reason why I went with this setup is because I have a very similar setup on my 43X, and that's one of my favorite carry pistols. So when I was building out the perfect Glock 17, I knew I had to get this slide and barrel. If you're not familiar with the Reactor kits, this is basically an aftermarket custom slide and barrel that are ported in the front. This is going to allow the gases to release from the top, really helping you manage the felt recoil. And that's pretty much it for this build. Right now, I only have about 200 rounds through this pistol, so I don't want to do a full review until I get at least 1,000 to 2,000 rounds through this gun. But my early initial thoughts, this really is the perfect Glock 17 build. And I may have jumped ahead of myself because I was able to source a factory battlefield green Glock 17 frame. Now I'm still in the process of transferring the parts between the frames, but I guess this is a sneak peek at what to expect. But that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.